Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls. And we are here together to study the last chapter, finally, of the book, Jesus in the Home. I know we don't mean to end the study, but the study of this book is coming to an end. Chapter 50 today, in prayer. Throughout this whole book, we have discovered new features of our Master and Guide Jesus. Non-verbal lessons and verbal lessons. We have been learning that we, number one, are the new disciples. 2, we have been learning that He communicates with us, guides us without words, through His silence, through His look, His embrace, His smile, His attention, His constant goodwill, and spirit of educator. He's never impatient. He's always patient, kind, and firm. He's so wise that inspires in us new willingness to learn. He's constantly encouraging us to take another step into our progress. Yesterday, when we were studying chapter 49, our dear friend Leia Severo kindly reminded us today something we forgot to mention, and would like to make this note as people are entering before we talk about the last chapter. On chapter 49, the redemptive journey, we mentioned that this was one of the chapters in which a woman, like Zebedee's wife, was posing a question. And it's interesting because we mentioned how Jesus was phenomenal in allowing men and women to speak at a time when women were not allowed to speak. Now, in this chapter, another feature, as Leia Severo pointed out, in chapter 2, we have the very Zebedee's wife also asking a question. She asked about what is our life in the home supposed to be after all? And then later she talks about redemption. She asks about achieving this divine kingdom. We can't forget that the journey of redemption is ours, but it's not simple. As Jesus explained to her and to all of us at the end of the chapter, it says quite clearly here that above all, people must realize that they are blind and apply to themselves the remedy prescribed in the divine commandments. But what if it's hard? What if, no matter how hard we try, it doesn't feel like moving forward? That's why the wise Neio Lucio compiled the last chapter of this book titled In Prayer. Because prayerfulness is a virtue. So I'd like to recommend to you in this book that we have been talking about throughout the sessions of our study, the Family Virtue book by Linda Popov. There is a virtue that she described, prayerfulness. And I'm going to read a little bit of it as an introduction to the chapter. Because being prayerful is not a given, it's a construction. It's a habit, like going to the gym, like eating healthy, like speaking good things, like learning to be silent at the right time. It's a virtue. So she says, quoting from Jeremiah in the Old Testament 33, verse 3. Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. What is prayerfulness? Prayerfulness can be practiced in many ways. Prayer is talking with God, precisely the concept that we read in the Gospel according to Spiritism. You can pray in silence or out loud. You can sing or dance in prayer. You can use any language. God always hears your thoughts and understands your heart. Prayerfulness is living in a way which shows that you are in the presence of your Creator. It is doing simple things with an attitude of gratitude. It is knowing you are a unique creation of God and are acting in ways which are worthy of that gift. Prayer is praising God, being thankful for things. Prayerfulness is quiet reflection. It is allowing the Great Spirit to speak to you. It is listening and receiving God's guidance. Prayerfulness is living in a way which shows that you are in the presence of your Creator. So let's keep that in mind, okay? Because since we are all here in this journey of new learning experiences in our own redemption, learning to do the right, today Neio Lucio crowns the book with chapter 50. Okay? In prayer. I'll get back to all of you, friends, in a minute, okay? On the eve of the Lord's departure for Sidon, the gospel service at Peter's house had taken on an air of understandable melancholy. The edifying study would proceed, but the work of the revelation in some way or another would experience a natural interruption. Pause for a second, just out of curiosity. The gospel or the God at home meetings with Jesus in Peter's house, just so you picture, in the map, if you go to the map, we're gonna find Peter's home in Bethsaida, which is by the shores of the Sea of Galilee. And Sidon, or Sidon, is at the north. Today, that city, Sidon or Sidon, is the third largest city of Lebanon. And it's not near in any way to where Jesus was with Peter in his house. But just so you feel the great efforts of our Master. Nowadays, we have cars, trucks, buses, trains, planes, bikes. It's much easier to move around, to go from place to place. And yet, we complain, thinking that everything's so far. But for Jesus, he was walking. If not only walking, could use some animals to transport him. And yet, it was very time-consuming and labor-intensive. Plus, no 7-Elevens in the way in, no convenience stores, no easy hotels around. It wasn't easy. Food, no supermarkets, no water bottles. So imagine, we needed to contextualize it. And nowadays we have everything and yet an emptiness in the heart. But Jesus, as in chapter 50 of this book, he's saying he needs to go. They're going to continue the God at Home meetings, but they feel melancholic. What then? With obvious emotion, Matthew read the moving pages from Isaiah. And you know that Isaiah in the Old Testament was the one that announced the coming of the Messiah, all the predictions. And when you go to the book Paul and Stephen, Jeziel, in the first part of the book, describes several excerpts of Isaiah announcing the coming of the Messiah, especially when he's talking to Peter and exchanging news about the coming of the Messiah. So Matthew read the moving pages from Messiah, but on that night of farewells, no one had any questions. A look of untranslatable expectation appeared on everyone's faces. You can almost feel the emotion of everybody feeling that Jesus was going to depart, right? The master, on his part, what did he do? Observe this, his nonverbal lesson. Refrained from making any comments. But at the end of the meeting, he raised his lucid eyes to heaven and prayed fervently. Jesus didn't say a word. That doesn't mean he didn't do anything, because he's constantly illuminating. And he at the end raised his lucid eyes, eyes that have light, that have discernment, clarity, and prayed fervently, Father, kindle your divine light around all those who have neglected your blessing in the darkness of the earthly journey. Help those who have forgotten to share the leftover bread of their full tables. Help those who are unashamed to flaunt their happiness in the face of poverty and misfortune. Help those who forget to thank their benefactors. Take pity on those who sleep in the nightmares of vice, bequeathing a dolorous inheritance to those who are embarking upon the human journey. Uplift to those who have forgotten the duty to serve their neighbor. Take pity on the wise that hide their intelligence within the four walls of their domestic paradise. Awaken those who dream of controlling the world, not realizing that compared with eternity, their life in the flesh is merely 1 minute between the cradle and the grave. Uplift those who have fallen, defeated by an excess of material comfort. Correct those who spread sadness and pessimism amongst their fellow beings. Forgive those who have turned down the opportunity for peace and who go through life disseminating rebelliousness and disorder. Intervene on behalf of all those who believe that they possess fantastic power and insanely deem themselves to be judges, condemning their very own brothers and sisters. Awaken the troubled souls who poison the path of others with the spiritual aggression of untimely acts. Extend your paternal hands to those who have forgotten about the sentence of death, the renewer of life, which your law has engraved on the precarious body. Enlighten those who have lost themselves in the darkness of hatred and revenge, of wayward ambition and cold cruelty, and who believe they are powerful and free, when they are nothing more than slaves worthy of compassion before your sublime will. All of them, Father, are wrongdoers, who elude the courts of earth, but who are singled out by your sovereign and perfect justice for crimes of forgetfulness before the infinite good. At this point, Jesus ended his remarkable prayer. Nearly all those present, including the Master himself, displayed eyes wet with tears, and up above, the radiant moon, in its divine fullness, shone its beams down on Simon's humble home, appearing to silently weep because so many could live their lives forgetting about the Supreme Lord. But even so, the loving and the righteous Father of infinite goodness and perfect justice would continue to watch over them. Pause for a second. Let's go first and foremost to this first word that Jesus says, Father. Okay? Think about this. Hello, Rosa Maria. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Big hug to you and all the friends there. Saludos. So, Father. Father, why did Jesus say Father? Let's not forget that Jesus is the best psychotherapist that has ever existed on earth, right? And we all know that Jesus has, in some way or another, coined the term to designate God Father for the first time on earth. What is the importance of it? Why did Jesus do this? Why? As a psychotherapist, he knew that deep inside we have a child within. How do I know that it is my child that is constantly out there? Because we leave our home saying, I want. It's always about I feel, I want, I would like, I love, I don't like, I dislike. Child. Rarely we'll see people functioning in their reasoning. That's why Spiritism comes to boost our discernment. In all of the Spiritist literature, we find out that Spiritism is the light of discernment, in which we need to grow one step up and stop this want to replace by God's will. But Vanessa, what about my will? It doesn't count. One day we're going to learn that it is only God's will that counts. Why? Right now, you and I are breathing. You and I are breathing. Why? Because God wants. I don't have a switch on and off regarding my life. That means that I depend solely on God. I need to constantly ask God, why are you keeping me alive? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Oh, you want me to be there. You want me to be silent. I think of all things in this book, and I could ask you this question, what was the most striking nonverbal lesson that Jesus taught us? His silence. He taught us that we can be in a meeting and be quiet. And it's funny because in the United States, we learn that if you don't speak, you don't think. It's so funny because we changed, right? We changed the card's statement. You think there, I think there I am. In the US, it's pretty much you speak, then you think, then you exist. It's not true, because we can speak nonsense. And actually we create a lot of wars by speaking unnecessarily. Right? So we need to learn how to be silent. And it's one of the lessons that we have been learning with Jesus throughout this book, Jesus in the Home. He speaks with precision, just like Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements says to us. Something we haven't learned yet, but we will. And Jesus is our guide and model in that regard. Speak with precision. Most often, do not speak. Why? Not needed. Don't need to speak. Let people speak, or nobody speaks. Quietude is good for the brain. Nowadays, it's very concerning the way our children are being raised with so much noise, overstimulated, overly stimulated. You go to birthday parties, the music is loud, everything is crazy, chaotic, and people claim, but these are kids. It doesn't need to be that loud and crazy. We're not raising animals. And by the way, animals can be quiet. They are quite quiet, right? So I'm saying this because we're learning a new paradigm here, a new paradigm of life. Going back to the prayer that Jesus did, that consoles our hearts. His prayer is consoling all of our hearts, because don't you feel like the disciples? You wanted Jesus to stay? I do too. He is with us, but we wanted to be like that, side by side. And what does he say? He teaches us that above him there is God. In the prayer, he is telling everybody without words, friends, I have not come for you to make me an idol, a new God. There's only one God. And now I'm going to pray to God. So you don't forget about God. And God is your Father. So you're not abandoned. In other words, he's telling us, you and I are not alone. We are not abandoned. Right? Right, friends. And he's saying quite clearly in his prayer, kindle your divine light around all those who have neglected your blessing in the darkness of the earthly journey. So, question number one for us as an assessment, if we don't feel the scripture, there is no use, right? So feeling it, am I neglecting it? Primarily, if I feel alone and lonely and abandoned, in need of loving care, it's because we haven't found yet the connection with God that we have. We're still blind. We're still blind. Right, Sol Souza? Right, Rosa Maria and Carol Correa and friends? So he says, help those who have forgotten to share the leftover. So, we could make a list first. Number one, feel the unconditional and unsurpassing care of God, God's providence. Read it in the book Genesis by Allan Kardec, Divine Providence. Then he says, 2, share your leftovers. 3, help those. He's asking God to help those who are unashamed to flaunt their happiness in the face of poverty and misfortune. Pause. Facebook users, that's for us. You see, this is before Facebook, but so current. When we are sad, we don't post anything. But when we are happy, mamma mia, we post 10,000 things. As if the world is in need to see that. Jesus is saying it. Help those who are unashamed to flaunt their happiness in the face of poverty and misfortune. We need to change. We need to change the way we post things. I'll give an example. We have spiritist events, right? Great. I think it's good that we share good things. But another thing is to share 10,000 pictures. There are people in the world who are not happy. Many, as a psychologist and a researcher, scientist, I tell you, I've been reading articles that talk about the effect of those pictures in people's lives. You make more people upset and depressed than happy. Happier those who are there, because those who are not there may not be that happy. Do you see yourself, Jesus, posing for pictures? What would be the answer? No. Why? There is no time. He has no time to pose for pictures and post them with his friends, because his friends are everyone in the world. He still has a lot of people that are in need of help. We need to be a little more conscientious about people's feelings. This is Jesus, and I will repeat. God, help those who are unashamed to flaunt their happiness in the face of poverty and misfortune. Misfortune. I know daily people who feel they don't have enough friends, they're not appreciated enough. Why are other people happy? Why are not they happy? And people go there, boom, post pictures. Oh, they are so happy. Really? Are you so happy? That happy? Science shows too much, it's probably a sign that it's not real. Because when you're really in tune, you don't have time for this. Unless you are a model. A model, I say, a top model. People take pictures of the top models all the time. That's their job. But this is not our job. It's good to post good news here and there, but we need to be sensitive. Great, thank you. Thank you, Teresa Castro. Be sensitive to those less fortunate. And less fortunate is not only about food and coat and shelter. If you ask me, I would say primarily it's about being loved and appreciated. People, most often than not, don't feel they are loved and appreciated. When you show that there is too much love somewhere, you're telling the world. People capture that message. We need to be sensitive, as Teresa Castro is saying. Thank you, Carol, for posting the very line that we are emphasizing. And Jesus says, help those who forget to thank their benefactors. And he puts benefactors here, Neio Lucio, with a small letter, not capital. So it's not only the benefactor. Benefactors in your life. People who came before us. From parents to teachers, educators, pioneers, everyone in our lives. We need to be very conscientious. Little kids, they are rehearsing independence. They quickly snap and say, I don't need you, I can do all by myself. But when we grow older, we appreciate. Thank you, Carol. Take pity on those who sleep in the nightmares of vice. And that's hard, right? Vices and addictions. Asking God to really take care, because there's gonna be an effect. Uplift those who have forgotten the duty to serve their neighbor. How many of us live only for ourselves? We can't. Take pity on the wise that hide their intelligence within the four walls of their domestic paradise. And they're not talking about geniuses. They're just talking about people who acquired some knowledge and could share easily. And I see this daily in a Spiritist center. People who come to the Spiritist center and they have their expertise. If they could just help with their expertise, we would be less consumed by so many tasks, because we would have people with their expertise sharing their expertise in the Spiritist Center, instead of just sitting and waiting for somebody and doubting their own contribution. You know, everything in nature is a co-creator, right? Every being. The difference between the other kingdoms of nature and us is that we are aware. Once we become aware, we have consciousness of it. There's a big difference. Life changes completely. And then we start making choices. It's free will. I can make a choice. The choice to move to that direction of being a co-operator with God, co-pilot of God. Okay? He says, awaken those who dream of controlling the world. So current. And it happens in the big leadership of nations, and also in little communities like Spiritist communities. People thinking they are controlling the world. It's an illusion. An illusion. And Jesus is praying that they are awakened. The Pharisees at the time and the Pharisees of the new time who still feel that illusion. And unfortunately, many people feed that illusion in others. So I'm going to ask an assessment question here for us. Are you contributing to those who are dreaming of controlling the world, even if it is the Spiritist world? Are you contributing? Because sometimes we treat mediums, speakers, as if they are semi-gods. We are co-responsible for their fall. When people talk about John of God, I always say, he was not alone. If he made a mistake, he was not alone. Many people are involved. So it's very important for us to make this assessment question. Am I contributing with the fall of those who are coming, doing something that is important for the whole, by creating a new cult to their personality? Of course, we respect people who have conquered certain achievements. Respect, consideration, but not idolization. We cannot create new gods on earth, because there's only one God. You see, the disciples were treating Jesus like the new God. He didn't say a word. He took pity on us. Oh, we're gonna miss him. But you have God. What else do you want? If you have God, you have everything. And the prayer. Uplift those who have fallen, defeated by an excess of material comfort. People pray day and night about it. In the Spiritist magazine that is going to be released in April, we have an article that talks about family preparedness by the Spirit Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier in a book that is yet to be in English. And he says at the end of this message, and I recommend that you keep an eye because in the next issue of the magazine you're going to be able to read it. He says that we parents should not focus on giving every comfort to our children. It's very risky. Very risky. And there are parents who say, I'm gonna give to them everything I didn't have. It's beautiful to progress, but essentially what we didn't have spiritually and psychologically, emotionally is more important than materially. Materially may be just the means, but not the end. Very risky for children. And here is Jesus saying about the risks of too much material comfort, forgetting about the ones who are in greater need than ourselves. Correct those who spread sadness and pessimism amongst their fellow beings. Fake news, right? In the book, In the Domains of Mediumship, or in the Realms of Mediumship, we see the whole description of a journalist who was at the bar. André Luiz and the other spirits come in, and they observe that this spirit is this journalist. Not only is drinking, but he's writing an article that is going to be released about two families, and the spirit that comes, that is involved in the family's drama, he wants to avenge specifically a girl, so he uses that unaware medium, the unconscious mediumship of that journalist, to create new twists to the story, to enhance the drama. So we need to be very careful. Spreading slander. When we badmouth somebody, when we create lies about people, the consequences won't be pretty. Won't be pretty. Right? Teresa Castro is saying, so the only way I think I can help, uplift, awaken others is through my own actions. Otherwise, I'm accused of preaching or telling others what to do. I gotta get over others' approval. Yes, I think like Jesus, if we are being it, we are ready halfway through. We don't need to say. And forgive those who have turned down the opportunity for peace and go through life disseminating rebelliousness and disorder. There are people who think it's so beautiful nowadays to wear that robe of rebelliousness. If you say, I saw a post about an article about a mom who was talking about the fact that girls were using leggings at university. She was concerned about her 4 sons who were going there and women were making themselves available. I understood the feelings of that mom. I mean, what can we do, right? I mean, I understand her. But there were girls who were so rebellious that they took pictures of themselves using leggings, opening their legs just to tease the mother. Zero compassion, zero peace, creating an unnecessary war with a mother's heart that was suffering, and I understand her, thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna say she's right, but in spite of being right or wrong, compassion. I'm not gonna go there if somebody says, I don't like noise. I say, oh, you're so silly, and then I start making noises. That's rebelliousness. If you know what people don't like, don't go there. Respect. If you know that people are bothered by something, don't do it. No, but I'm gonna do it because people have to learn. If they don't like it, don't do it. That's why Jesus said, if people do not welcome you, go away. That's peace. Leave it alone. Let them be. No, but I need to explain. They need to understand. No. Leave it alone. Time will tell. We don't need to make people swallow ourselves. Let them be. God knows. God is watching us. Right? Isn't that the song? God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us. Not from a distance, from very close, we can tell. And then, listen to this. He prays. Intervene. He asks God to intervene. Amazing. This is an amazing prayer. Intervene on behalf of all those who believe that they possess fantastic power and insanely deem themselves to be judges, condemning their own brothers and sisters. Intervene. He asks for God's intervention. Amazing. Can you ask God to intervene? If Jesus did, you can do too. He's teaching us. We can ask God, God, please intervene, so people do not judge or condemn as so easily as they do. What a discovery, huh? To discover that Jesus asks God to intervene. Amazing. But why? In the book Action and Reaction, we learn that those who judge and condemn connect with groups of avengers, schools of avengers. In the book Liberation by André Luiz, we also learn about groups of spirits that they are justice makers. It's very sad. When we are in that position, we are creating connections with those type of spirits. Gabriel Inácio saying, I think maybe we have to stop speaking too much and start feeling, hearing, understanding, serving, so on. You're right. I agree with you. So Jesus says, awaken the troubled souls who poison the path of others with the spiritual aggression of untimely acts. Oh, my mia. I never forget. In an international spiritist event, my husband Carlos and I stopped talking to talk to somebody. It doesn't matter the name of the person. And I said, oh, do you know that Speaker X is coming to the US soon? What do you think? Are you guys gonna receive in the center? No, we're not. Why not? Oh, because that speaker does this, that, and the other. Lies. Complete lies. I was shocked because I said, are you sure? Oh yes, I've heard about this, that, and that. Why do people behave in this way? This is exactly what Jesus is saying. Troubled souls who poison the path of others. So sad. And not only a few others, many others. Awaken the troubled souls. Extend your paternal hands to all those who have forgotten about death and think they're gonna be eternal. When are we gonna discarnate? I don't know. So that's why we don't stop working and serving, because it may be any time. May it be just like that. Boom, we're working. Done. What a blessing, huh? We won't regret. Enlighten those who have lost themselves in the darkness of hatred and revenge. There are people who say, I'll never forget. I'll always hate. So first thing, erase from your dictionary the word hatred. Cross it out. Cross it out. Doesn't exist. There are people who have the habit. I hate this. This is very aggressive. Talking about nonviolence, changing the terms we speak is healthy. When you speak, put your hand on your chest and you feel the vibration. Say love. Now say hatred. Hatred is completely different vibration. It stays with us. So changing it physiologically makes a difference in all the dimensions of ourselves. So let us propose ourselves. At the end of this prayer, if we could summarize, we are not going to dare to summarize Jesus' complete prayer in a few words. But we would say it's to the direction of non-violence and the embracing of love. He says, Father, and he ends, all of them, Father, are wrongdoers who elude the courts of the earth, but who are singled out by your sovereign and perfect justice for crimes of forgetfulness before the infinite good. Many people right now are being applauded by the world. Hopefully not us, because we don't deserve applause. But the justice of God is watching over us. As a father, loving mother, we watch, keep an eye. As Kardec says in the book Genesis about the divine providence, if a diligent, loving parent takes good care of a child, imagine the love of God. When we feel that affiliation with God, our lives are transformed completely. We'll no longer play by the rules of our current society. We'll be different, strange, but a good strange. A strange for the better. One that encourages us to keep on marching, to keep on serving, without words. When you are at your family's house, in a reunion, You may not say anything, but you're the one serving people. Jesus used to serve people all the time. You washing the dishes, swiping the floor, taking care of the children. When you are at work, you're always the one who is attentive to the group's needs. That makes a difference. People are gonna look at you like, wow, that's different. Instead of being seated, chatting, we're constantly attentive to people's needs. No longer to be served, but to serve. Of course, at the end of this prayer, everybody cried. There was a silent weep. And says Neio Lucio, nearly all those present, including the Master himself, displayed eyes wet with tears, including Jesus. And up above, the radiant moon, shining its light on Peter's house. And at the end he says, appearing to silently weep, because so many could live their lives forgetting about the Supreme Lord. But God never forgets about us. A book that begins mentioning Jesus in the home and ends talking about God in our lives. Jesus is the path. Have we found God? The ultimate assessment question for all of us is, have you found God? Have you felt God? Have we felt God as our Father? Do you feel God's providence? Research more. Read. I forgot the number of the chapter, but there's a chapter in the book Genesis by Kardec that talks about the divine providence. Read about it, because you feel the proximity of God. When we find God, everything else is well. Right, Rudy? Right, Angie? Ella Montanari? Carol Correia, thank you. Thank you, Lívia Moraes. Teresa Castro, thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gabriel Inácio and Alicia Ramos. Sol Souza and Luana, big hug to you guys. Sarita, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rosa Maria. Thank you, Adilson. Thank you, Giovana. Big hug to your daughter. Thank you, Gione. Big hug to you, Luisa Vanessa. Nina Duya, big hug to you and the family and the group. Melissa, super hug to you, Melissa. Hercules, how are you? Thank you. Thank you, John De Rosa. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Angelita. Thank you, Sandra from Brazil. Thank you, Annie, Renata Casadei, and Sunshine. Thank you, Karina Alice. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Leia Severo. Ana, thank you, Ana. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Raquel Bakeshi, Nora Brasil. Paula, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Jailton. So, friends, this is it for our study today. Thank you. And we have another study night lined up. Just give us a day or two so we can announce the next study, okay? I think you're gonna like it, because every single literature in the Spiritist realm is fascinating. Let us pray together now in gratitude to Jesus, to Neio Lucio, to Chico Xavier. Shall we, friends? We will be back. Just give us a few days. Maybe in a day or two, we will announce the next one. I'm just waiting on something and we will announce, okay? But some break for us meditation with God. Shall we? Let us pray, friends. Let us raise our thoughts. Oh, Master Jesus, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for these immortal lessons. Thank you for teaching us without words, with your vibrations, and for allowing the loving Neio Lucio, through the loving Chico Xavier, to bring to us these teachings. We'll never be the same after meeting with you this close. What a blessing. And thank you first and foremost for showing to us that God is everything. Please forgive our childishness. May we stay strong in the fulfillment of God's will, asking ourselves daily, why are you keeping me alive? But not only on this reincarnation, but why do you want me to exist, dear God? And may we just feel the loving guidance and fulfill it with diligence in spite of the odds. Thank you for the resources you give to us. For everyone who collaborates in two realms of life, for the opportunity of this togetherness. May the blessings of the current of the light that unites us all be shared especially with those who are in greater need than ourselves. May the whole planet feel your loving care today and always, and so be it. A super hug. Let us stay in the nourishing silence of our Master Jesus. Shall we, friends? Until next time.